Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, here to talk about one of the most prevalent topics in all of gaming these days, and that is the fact that a lot of games these days be getting delisted. A lot of games these days that you guys paid for, you paid for some of these games, and one in particular be shutting down. Kinda seems like highway robbery in terms of us getting robbed when we buy games and sometimes spend an egregious amount of money on these video games and then they shut down and then they're no longer playable. Then they no longer, or they never just offered an offline mode. There's a lot of layers to this topic. Obviously, there's been a new initiative that's been launched. We'll talk about it and we'll run down everything in this video. A lot of games have been getting pulled from various storefronts, from Steam, from the PlayStation Store, from digital storefronts in general, and that's been making people quite a bit more skeptical in buying digital games in general. Now, to be fair, the general way that delistings happen, and this is the majority of cases, obviously a recent instance of a game getting pulled really begs the question on how far this could actually go. But generally speaking, when a digital game gets pulled from the storefront, a lot of the times it's because of some sort of licensing issues, and in those instances, when a license expires and the said developer, said publisher doesn't want to renew the license because they have to pay a certain fee, and they don't deem the fee to be worth it based on how many copies of the game are concurrently selling at that time, so on and so forth, they just decide to delist the game from the storefront as those licensing agreements expire. And then the game is gone from the digital storefront. However, generally speaking, the game will still remain in your library. A game like Deadpool, for example, I believe was pulled from digital storefronts, and that game, after it got pulled, if you had bought that game previously digitally, you're still able to download the game, you're still able to do everything. It's just that if you never bought the game, you're out of luck, you can no longer buy the game. However, things changed a little bit when The Crew recently got pulled by Ubisoft. Now, The Crew is a game that you would think would be able to remain as a game to be played offline. Racing games are always interesting because there's so many licensing agreements attached to racing games, whether it be from a soundtrack standpoint, whether it be the cars themselves, that you'll see racing games get pulled quite often. The Forza Horizon games, they get pulled from the Microsoft Store after a while. However, The Crew is an interesting instance where, and interesting may not be the right superlative to use here, but it's an instance where the game gets pulled from the storefront, and because of its live service nature and because of this online-only nature of The Crew, the servers have to remain up for the game to be accessible, but the game got pulled. The servers got shut down. What does that mean? Oh, you are SOL. Even if you bought The Crew, I don't know how much you ended up spending on The Crew. The game came out a decade ago, but when the game initially came out, you're talking about a $60 game. You're talking about a Ubisoft release, so even a decade ago, you damn well know there were deluxe editions, there were special editions, there were ultimate editions. They weren't all aboard on doing absolute nonsense like they do now as far as $130 editions and whatnot, but Crew was a game that was monetized via microtransactions as well, from what I recall. I played Crew when it initially came out. It's not like I was playing Crew 1 forever. However, even if that is the case, even if you're of the mindset of, oh man, this game is 10 years old, just go buy The Crew 2, go buy Crew Mode first. First of all, people spend money, hard-earned money on their game. What kind of precedent does this set when you spend $60 on a game and you are giving up power, you are giving up so much authority to the publisher, to the developer, and that is what you have to hyper-focus on. The Crew getting pulled, is it going to affect the majority of my viewers? Probably not. I don't know how many of you guys were playing The Crew 1. However, when you let stuff like this slide, when you let stuff like the Discovery nonsense that was about to happen, where all of that content was about to be pulled and people that bought that content, it doesn't matter if that content was, bought by 0.00001% of my viewers and 0.00001% of my viewers cared about that. You are setting the precedent where you are giving up so much authority, so much power to the publisher, and at this point, we are pretty much already at the whims of the publisher. They can do whatever the hell they want. Digital games, and in this case, The Crew, even if you have a physical copy of the game, guys, it's a coaster now. It is a damn coaster, and it's one thing where you look at a game like Massive Action Game from 2011, I believe it was, 2010, January of 2010, Zipper Interactive, shout out to you guys, and that game gets shut down. That game's on PlayStation 3. It's not that accessible these days because Sony won't give us backwards compatibility. And that is a game that really relies on its online focus. Like, it's a 256-player online multiplayer first-person shooter. That was the whole gimmick attached to the game. That game, the server's getting shut down. Like, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, but there are so many aspects to that game where I'm just like, okay, it's becoming a coaster. I kind of understand why it's becoming a coaster. In the case of The Crew, I feel like it would have been so easy to preserve this game, and the fact that it's not being preserved is so wild. Now, let's actually talk about the topic of this video. So, as noted on PC Gamer, YouTuber Ross Scott is putting up a fight. I'll leave a link where you can find more information, but Scott has launched a new website, Stop Killing Games, to rally opposition to the games industry's assault on both consumer rights and preservation of media, as he puts it. With The Crew as its prime example of the campaign, directs consumers around the world to sign petitions and submit complaints to regulatory bodies such as DGCCRF, France's Consumer Protection Agency. The basic legal argument is that video games are goods rather than services, regardless of the terminology game publishers may use, and goods should be rendered inoperable by the seller after we buy them. And I agree with that wholeheartedly. While games are called these live service model, that's a model that they employ. And Ubisoft is one of the most egregious publishers where they employ this live service model while releasing $60 games, while releasing $70 games, while releasing $120 Ultimate Editions. Ubisoft will monetize games to the nth degree, and they will continue to do whatever they can to monetize and monetize and monetize. They butchered one of my favorite franchises of all time in Assassin's Creed, and I perceive it to be butchered. I know a lot of you guys like it, but I know why they did it. It's so that they could take Assassin's Creed and monetize it to the nth degree. Now, Assassin's Creed is one of those games that, you know, servers shutting down for Assassin's Creed ain't gonna be the end of the world. I don't think that game is gonna get pulled. But again, we know the history of gaming. We know what these publishers can do. If you give them an inch, you're damn right they are at some point going to take a mile. You've got games like Suicide Squad being online only and having online only being a thing at launch. For what godforsaken reason is Suicide Squad online only at launch? And let me add this, that is a game that, based on it being online only, I had genuine issues with the game, and it wasn't just me. There was an update that dropped on Suicide Squad, and I was trying to play that game, and as I was continually doing the same boss fight, by the end of that boss fight, I kept getting kicked for the game, and guess what? My progress got reset. So that's an issue with that game being online only. At some point, Rocksteady did say that they're going to implement an offline only mode, but what if that game came out online only and it remained online only? Again, you're giving them an inch at this point where people are okay with Suicide Squad, and maybe not okay. Suicide Squad was crapped on generally, but you're giving them an inch in the case of Suicide Squad being online only when it's a game that has no godforsaken reason to be online only outside of the fact that being online only, the only thing that I can think of, allows them to promote all the live service elements of that game, the monetized aspects of that game. It's a $70 game, but they damn well want to sell you all these costumes and all this nonsense, so it's online only. I feel the reason for that is to sell you on these costumes and whatnot, because there's no reason that game should be online only. Yes, it does have co-op, but that game should be fully playable as a solo experience. So, you're giving them an inch, letting this game launch as an online only product, and if that is accepted, at some point, they're going to shift to games like that being online only in general, because you're giving them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Let's say it ultimately gets to that point of being a mile where it's online only. Well, at that point, now this issue becomes a thing where if they shut down the servers for that hypothetical game, it's just gone forever. You paid money for the game, it's just gone forever. And again, it's kind of two different things working in conjunction here, where you see it with Ubisoft where they're shutting down a 10-year-old game that people paid for. I don't care if it's 10 years old, people still paid money for it, and some people a lot of money based on the monetization practices of it. And you couple this with the elements in gaming that you're seeing with like a Suicide Squad launching while being online only when it has no reason to, absolutely zero reason to be online only. Couple that together and realize that if it keeps going in that direction, there's an absolute disaster that could be brewing here. And I'm saying that's still probably a far ways out before it exploding into the absolute disaster that I can foresee it becoming. But I kind of feel like we're seeing the infancy of it. And a game getting pulled that people pay from, you could even say we're well past the infancy of it and the nonsense is already brought. You can gauge it however you want, but people just accept it wholeheartedly with things like Suicide Squad being online only and my perceived reaction to that game being online only is the fact that it's online only, so they'll get that influx of people playing the game at launch, and they want to promote all of the live service elements to you guys at launch because they know that's where all of the people are going to be. At some point, I would think that if that flies, if they realize that that is the route to go, they'll just make it perpetually online only forever with their future releases, and then couple in this with something like Ubisoft pulling a game's servers or shutting down the servers because they deem it, hey, it's 10 years old. We'll realize some madness could occur if those things act in conjunction. And there's so much more to this, and there's a lot of information on the PC Gamer article. I'm not going to go into every little detail, but we've been talking about games getting delisted on this channel for a while, and it's one thing where it's like a licensing agreement and the game is still fully accessible. It is fully accessible for the people that bought it. It's a whole different ball game when it's something like The Crew, when the game was so easily to be preserved. I'd also heard things about on the PC version of the game and the in-game files, there's mentions of an offline mode, and that just hasn't come to pass, and hopefully people push back on Ubisoft enough to the point where they realize that they effed up and they decide to implement some sort of offline mode, and all of this is, all of this leads to something good being happened. But I just expect nothing good out of Ubisoft these days. I just expect them to want to release games like Skull and Bones, release them at $70, battle pass them up the wazoo, $100 Ultimate Editions, 3-day early access gimmicks for single-player games like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, and so on and so forth. And I don't like Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, but Ubisoft, you're one of my publishers that at one point I thought you could do no wrong. At one point you were dropping banger after banger, but these days I'm just like, man, it's just all about live service and monetizing these games to the nth degree, and I get it that gaming is a business, you're trying to make the most amount of money possible, but was Skull and Bones really something that was a net positive return? Was some of these other live service games a net positive return for you? I get it, you have successes like the Assassin's Creed games, like Rainbow Six Siege, and you're trying to make more and more of that, but a little bit of a balancing act would be appreciated, but not to just crap on Ubisoft in totality. There's a lot of this nonsense going on, but The Crew is really one of the shining examples of the biggest form of nonsense. But that'll do it for me. Again, this is a topic that I've covered on this channel for quite a while, and it's a topic that certainly we gotta talk a lot about, especially with the dominance and the prevalence of live service games and the live service model. It's something that's only gonna pick up steam in the coming years, so definitely better to talk about it now than, let's say, in 2032 when it gets normalized and I might be in the grave by then. So who knows where these things will go, but that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments section down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate it if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.